guys, I'm Bima from Team NV, and today I'm going to be giving you guys a rundown on my thoughts about the new set, the Curse of Naxxramus. To start off with, I'll probably talk about the Druid card, and I'll move my way down all the class cards, and I'll finish up by talking about the new neutral cards that are in the expansion. So to begin with, we'll talk about Poison Seeds, which is the new Druid card, and its effect is destroy all minions and summon 2/2 treants to replace them, and it's a 4 mana card. Originally, I thought this card would be pretty good because this is like an answer to the concealed Gadget Sand play for Miracle Rogue. But upon thinking about it some more, it's not like every game you're going to play against Miracle Rogue, right? This card is not very good against aggressive decks. Like, for example, Zoo. Because, like, a lot of the time, the creatures aren't actually that much stronger than 2/2s. And you're going to change, like, a Flame Imp or, like, a Void Walker or, like, a Haunted Creeper into, like, a 2/2 treant. And that's not actually that big of a deal for you. Like, doesn't really help you. And you're spending 4 mana for it. So, if you play this on turn 4, that's the end of your turn. And you didn't even gain board presence. So, this card is not actually very good against aggressive decks like Paladin or like Zoo or whatever. But on the flip side, it's really good against control decks like Druid playing all their taunts like 3/5, Ascension Shieldmaster, or like Sunwalker or Ragnaros even. Like if you play it on that type of board, then like you're gonna probably win the game off that. But the problem is, it's terrible against the aggro decks. Um, that said, I feel like this card works best with like multiple tokens. It works well with like Loot Hoarder, Harvest Golem, all the cards that would benefit from dying pretty much. So this card has potential, but at the moment it's not that good, and it can become good after like a few more cards come out with Death Rattles. So we'll probably revisit this again, like maybe in a few weeks' time. Moving on to Hunter, they have a new card called Web Spinner, and it's a 1 mana 1/1, and its Death Rattle is add a random beast card to your hand. So like, if you think about it, this is kind of like a cheaper version of Novice Engineer. Because you're playing this card, and when it dies, it pays for itself, right? And it only costs 1 mana. So essentially, how a standard game would go is you play Web Spinner on turn 1, and then they have to Hero Power on turn 2 to kill it. And then that's really, really good for you, because they just spent 2 mana to kill your 1 mana card. So now you get to play your 2 mana. You get to play your 2 mana creature, and then they have to be on the defensive, while you're the one who's like putting creatures onto the board. So I think this card is really good like early game. And then moving on to like mid game, maybe like on turn 4. Because on turn 3, ideally you want to play Bow or like you want to play Animal Companion, right? So on turn 4 you can play Web Spinner, and then you can like play Kill Command, and that's the 4 mana combo, which will kill basically everything in the game. And then moving on to like 5 mana, you play this card with Houndmaster, and that's actually like one of the strongest combos in the deck. Because for 5 mana, you're getting a 4/3 onto the board with Houndmaster, and you're getting a floater, like something that pays for itself, as a 3/3 with Taunt. So like they can't even touch your Houndmaster in theory. So it's going to be a really strong card, especially because almost all of the beats that you can get off this card, like very few of them are actually horrible. Like the only horrible beast is like Young Dragonhawk, and everything else is kind of like okay for you. So this card is really good. Its only weakness is maybe silences, but no, considering when you're likely to be playing this, like on turn 1, like if they play Iron Big Owl on it, you just trade it with Iron Big Owl. So you're still ahead because you're trading 1 card for 1, and theirs costs 2 mana. So this card is easily like one of the better cards coming out from Naxxramas. And in conjunction with like another card that's coming out called Mad Scientist. And that card is also really good. It's a 2 mana, and you get a 2/2 creature that has Death Rattle that says when it dies, you get to search your deck for like a random secret and put it on the board. And that in conjunction with this is going to make Hunter really good, in my opinion. Okay, moving on to the Mage new secret. It's called Duplicate. And it's basically a 3 mana secret that says when a friendly minion dies, put 2 copies of it into your hand. I actually think that this card is pretty gimmicky. It doesn't seem that good to me, but there is one way I can see this card working, and it's like you run a tempo mage deck with Mad Scientist, which is that 2 mana card that allows you to put a free secret onto the board, right? So you basically play that, and then you drop Duplicate, or you run Mirror Entity as well, and then you combo Mirror Entity with Duplicate, and you can steal their cards pretty much. So you can have like 3 copies of the card that they play into your hand. That still sounds pretty gimmicky to me, but I can kind of see like how this would work, because effectively Duplicate is like you're paying 1 card to get 2 cards. So we'll see. Duplicate has potential. Okay, next card we have Paladin, and their new secret is called Avenge. And it's a 1 mana card that says when one of your minions dies, give a random friendly minion +3/+2. So to begin with, like, this card will only really be viable in Aggro Paladin. I think it's going to be ridiculous in Aggro Paladin. Because if any of you have played against Aggro Paladin before, their goal is to play all of the cards in their hand, and then they play Divine Favor, and they draw like 5 cards off of it. So like, Paladin really wants low cost cards, and this card is extremely low cost. And on top of that, like early on in the game, if you proc Avenge and you give any minion in the game, like even your token, right, +3/+2, you get like a 4/3 creature. How can people deal with that early in the game? It's a 1 mana card, and you don't even care because you have Divine Favor to like make up your card advantage. So I reckon Avenge is like a really good card, and we will see like a rise of Aggro Paladin, I feel. And I think this card isn't getting enough attention for how good it actually is. Next on the list is the new Priest card, and this is called Dark Coldest. It's a 3 mana and it's a 3/4. Like, 3/4 is probably the best possible stat you can get for a 3 mana creature right now, without a downside like King Muckler or Dancing Swords, right? And then it has a Death Rattle that says, give a random friendly minion +3 health. So, at the moment, you don't think of Priest as like an aggro deck. You think, oh, Priest doesn't do anything until like turn 5 or 6 or whatever, like turn 10 with Mind Control. But like with this card, and like another card called Zombie Chow, which is like a 2/3 1 mana creature coming out, like Priest is actually going to become an aggro deck. Yep. So Priest is actually going to be one of the more like, it's going to be the New Age Su in a way. And that's something that nobody would like expect pretty much. So you basically run like Dark Orders, Zombie Chow, a bunch of 2-drops like Knife Juggler, and then you use Holy Smite to secure your position early on in the game. And then, yeah, you just dominate the board pretty much. It's gonna be hard to deal with. I can assure you that Priest will actually be a good deck after every card comes out. Okay, next card is a rogue card. It's called Anuba Ambusher, and it's a 4 mana card that's a 5/5, which is really big, right? But it has this Death Rattle that says return a random friendly minion to your hand. I think this card is awful, to be honest. Like, it's awful in Miracle Rogue, in my opinion. And, well, I guess it's okay in Miracle Rogue, but it still doesn't really have a place there. And then, for Tempo Rogue, like, your whole point is to play as many cards in your hand as possible. And then you have this card that returns creatures on the board back to your hand. So it seems counterintuitive, in my opinion. So, maybe this deck will work if, like, you run like a lot of battle cries and then you reuse them. But overall, I think this card is pretty poor. Probably one of the worst class cards being released this set. Next on the agenda is Reincarnate, and this is a Shaman spell that's 2 mana. And it says destroy minion, then return it to life with 4 health. One sec. Sorry about that. So it basically means, it says destroy a minion, then return it to life with 4 health. And this card is really flexible, I feel, because you can play it on a lot of cards. Like, you can play it on Injured Blade Master to turn it into a 4/7. You can play it on any high HP creature who's been damaged by battle, and then you can bring him back off full HP. You can play it with a charge, like you can play with Argent Commander, and then it'll be able to attack again on the same turn, and like it'll get its Divine Shield back. Or you can play it on Sylvanas, and then basically for 7 mana, you get like a free mind control. Or you can play it on Can, and then for 2 mana you get a 4/5. So this card is really flexible, and I think some Shaman decks will try to run this. It also works with Leroy Jenkins, so overall this card has a lot of utility. The next card is the Warlock card, and it's called Voidcaller. It's a 4 mana for 3/4, and the death rattle is put a random demon from your hand into the battlefield. I think this card is actually really good. It doesn't actually matter which demon you drop off it, like even Flame Imp is pretty good with it, because you're paying 4 mana for like a 3/4 and a 3/2, and then, I mean, I feel as though that's really worth it. And on top of which, this card actually has some really cool combos, like interactions. For example, imagine you run Voidcaller and you run Doomguard, right? And you have both in hand. And then you can like play all your other demons, and then you play Voidcaller, and then you swing it into their 4 attack creature, and your Voidcaller will die, right? And then when your Voidcaller dies, you're guaranteed to drop your Doomguard in hand, and then because Doomguard has charge, you can attack with it on the same turn that your Voidcaller just crashed into their 4 attack creature. And then it's definitely worth it because you're basically getting like a 5 mana card down on turn 5 without having to pay the 2 discard cost of Doomguard. So I think this card will definitely have potential at some point. You might even play it with like Void Terror or something. And the combos you can play and the tempo advantage you can get from Voidcaller is really, really high, and it can win you games. So this card has potential for sure. And the last card is Warrior's Deathbite, and it's a 4 mana weapon, and has 4 attack and 2 durability. And the death rattle is deal 1 damage to all minions. I think this card is not actually that good right now. I mean, if you play this on turn 4, I don't actually know how many cards this card actually kills. It's definitely good against cards like Dancing Swords, but like Dancing Swords and Nerubian specifically. And I guess it kind of combos with like Abomination and stuff if you really want to do the whole AoE damage thing. But I feel as though this card is a bit too awkward to play right now. It has like this cool advantage where like on the second swing it's technically 5 damage and not 4, because you can just swing at like the Yeti or something, and then your weapon will die because there's no durability, and then it'll like pop and it'll deal 1 damage to all minions, so it'll do 5 damage overall, right? So this card is like kind of cool, and it'll be good in like Face Warrior as well, but overall, I don't think this card is that good right now. But let's see. Let's see as more cards come out. And that's it for all of the class cards, right? So now we're going to move on to the neutral cards. And there are a lot of neutral cards to go through. Okay, so I'll start off with Undertaker. And I don't know how many of you have played like the adventure mode yet, but sometimes they drop Undertaker on turn 1. And it's like a 1 mana 1/2. And whenever you summon a minion with Death Rattle, you gain +1/+1. And so like I played against, I think it was like Phalina or something, and she drops like Undertaker, and then she drops 2 Death Rattle creatures, and then all of a sudden I'm staring down a 3/4. Like I'm staring down a 3/4 Undertaker, and it's just a 1 mana card. So I was like, how do I deal with this? This thing's actually just massive, right? And I think any deck that like runs a lot of Death Rattles will definitely want to run this, because you're paying 1 mana for like a potentially massive creature that other people can't deal with. So this is actually a really good card, and I think a lot of people rate this quite highly as well. Next on the agenda is Zombie Chow, and it's a 1 mana creature that has the death rattle of restore 5 health to the enemy hero, but it's also a 2/3 creature, so like it's basically a River Crocolisk for 1 mana, which is massive. Like, this is like finally a 1-drop that can compete with Warlock's 1-drops like Flame Imp and Voidwalker. Like finally you get like this massive 1-drop for every class, right? And like the classes that will benefit the most from this, in my opinion, will be like Token Druid and Token Druid, probably Zoo, and very likely it'll be aggro Priest as well. Because Priest finally have like a way to drop like multiple early game pressure, like you can drop like early game pressure like Zombie Chow, Dark Coldest, etc. And they like combo with each other. So I think Zombie Chow will be very prevalent in the metagame, and you'll see a lot of it. Okay, next card is Echoing Ooze, and I feel like this card is just a gimmicky card that isn't actually that good. But it's cool. It's like really cool. Like the standard combo is you play like Echoing Ooze and then you play Blessing of Kings or something, and at the end of the turn you have two 5/6 creatures for 6 mana. Or like maybe more practical, like you run a deck with Sword of Justice, and then like a scenario will occur where you play Sword of Justice and then you play Echoing Ooze, and then it'll get buffed to a 2/3, and at the end of the turn it'll summon a copy of it that's also 2/3, and then your Sword of Justice will buff that into a 3/4. So you've got some cool combos with Echoing Ooze, but I'm not sure how good it'll actually be. So we'll find out, I guess. And the next card is Haunted Creeper, and it's a 2 mana creature that's a 1/2, 1/2 beast, so it's kind of good in Hunter as well. And its death rattle is summon 2 1/1 Spectral Spiders. And this card, it's only been out for like less than a week, and it's already seeing a heap of play in like a bunch of decks. It's being played in Shaman, it's being played in Zoo, it's being played in Druid as well, I'm pretty sure. So this card is just being run in everything because it's like the 2 mana Harvest Golem. Because no one can really deal with this. It's like nobody wants to kill it, right? Because it has 2 health and it has 1 attack. So like it's not exactly hard to kill. But when it comes out, it actually does more damage because it summons 2 1/1 Spectral Spiders. And this card is specifically good with like all the stat boosting cards. Like with Druid, it's really good with like Power of the Wild. With Shaman, it's good with like Flame Tongue Totem. And with Warlock, you can run like, or for Zoo, you can just run like Shattered Sun Cleric, Dark Iron Dwarf, Direwolf Alpha. And if you're like really keen, you can run Void Terror as well. So this card is already like really good, and I think we'll just like see that be a bit of a dominant force in the metagame. The next card on the set is Mad Scientist, and I think this is like one of the best cards in the entire set. It's a 2 mana for 2/2, and its death rattle is put a secret from your deck into the battlefield. And to put this into perspective about like how strong this card actually is, like for Mage and for Hunter, well, okay, we'll start with Mage. For Mage, right, all of their secrets are like 3 mana, and so when you play this card, you're not only getting a 2/2 creature, but you're pretty much guaranteed a 3 mana secret as well. So like you're not only getting card advantage, but you're also gaining tempo as well, because usually you'd have to pay 3 mana to like play the secret as well. So I feel as though any deck that can like fit any amount of secrets in will run Mad Scientist as well, just because it's just so much value in one card. Like it's even good in like, it's good in Hunter because you can just get like Explosive Trap or Misdirection or Freezing Trap, and like there's not gonna be many ways to like deal with that type of lead. I feel Mad Scientist is gonna make a lot of decks good. Okay. Next card is Nerubal Weblord, and this is a 2 mana 1/4 with the effect of minions with Battlecry cost 2 more. I think this card has one of the highest potential out of like all the cards in the set, because you look at the game right now and there are just so many creatures with Battlecry right now. But that's also the downside, because you want to buff this creature, right? It's a 1/4, so it's just asking to get like stat increases, and then all of the stat increase cards that you can usually run with it are like Battlecry cards. So you want to play like Defender of Argus on it, you want to play Shattered Sun Cleric on it, but they're Battlecry creatures, so they can't really get played. So you got a bit of an awkward card here, but if you run it in a certain deck, like maybe Druid or something, and then you run Mark of the Wild, you can have like a a 3/6 card that's like cock blocking all of the battle cry creatures. So this card is like one of the higher potential cards in the set, although it's struggling to find a place currently. So we'll just have to wait and see. The next card I'm going to be talking about is the Nerubian Egg. And as you may have noticed, I crafted golden Nerubian eggs. And the reason behind this is because I feel like this is like the meta-defining card of the entire set. Like, it hasn't even been 1 week yet, and I feel like every deck that can possibly run this card is like trying to find a spot for this card because it's just that good. Like effectively, you're playing 2 mana for a 4/4, and if you have this on the board and they have AOE, they have like Consecration or something, they don't want to play Consecration because the moment they play Consecration, you're just gonna get a 4/4 Nerubian. And like it's the same thing for Zoo as well. It's like you play this and you're guaranteed to be able to buff it to like some attack, right? So you play like Dark Iron Dwarf on it, it's like 2/2. It dies to like everything. And you might even kill a creature off it, and then you get 4/4 Nerubian. And I've also seen like even Handlock run like Void Terror with Nerubian Egg to just create massive creatures. So end of the day, like this is just one of the best cards of the set. It's good in Shaman as well, with like Rockbiter and Flame Tongue Totem. And if you're ever building a deck, you should be thinking to yourself, can I like viably splash in Nerubian Egg? Because this card's just that good, in my opinion. Moving on, we're going to talk about Unstable Ghoul. And it's a 2-mana creature with 2-mana creature. It's a 1/3 and it's taunt with the Death Rattle, deal 1 damage to all minions. So that includes the all minions too. It's a bit iffy on that one. But the thing is, this card is really good against it's really good against aggro pretty much. Because this is effectively a 2/3 if you really think about it. Because when it dies, it's dealing 1 damage to everything. And when they attack it, it's dealing 1 damage to whatever's attacking it, right? And it's really good against tokens as well. Because, like, with Haunted Creeper, right, you usually can't deal with that. But this card is a perfect answer to Haunted Creeper. Like, you kill the Haunted Creeper, and then when this Unstable Ghoul dies, the Haunted Creeper tokens just all die as well. So this card actually seems like it could be really good. And in conjunction with, like, or maybe, like, the Warrior's Death Spite, or maybe Abomination or something, like, this card could clear a lot of stuff. So this is actually pretty cool. The next card is Dancing Swords, and it's a 3-mana 4/4, and its Death Rattle is your opponent draws a card. And I actually think that despite the drawback, this card is really, really good. Like, if you play this on turn 3, there are hardly any cards in the game that can actually deal with this. Like, for Druid at 3 mana, like, they can't Wrath it, they can't swipe it, and then they have no creatures that can even kill this thing. So you're getting like this 4/4 creature that can't be answered pretty much. And when they do answer it, like, you don't even care that they drew a card because they don't have enough mana to like play whatever they drew into. Unless they're like playing Rogue, where they can like draw into Backstab, or unless they're playing like, well, unless they're lucky enough to draw into Innovate off this card. Like, this card's downside is not really a downside, in my opinion. And if you're feeling really crafty about this card, you can even silence it with certain cards. And then you basically get like this creature that is 4/4 and you don't even let your opponent draw a card off it. The next card is Deathlord, and actually, going back to Dancing Swords as well, like, this is basically King Muckler, except you're not giving your opponents bananas, right? So like, you're not even giving them the tools to actually deal with this card. Like with Muckler, sometimes when they have board presence, then like you give them bananas and they're like, oh cool, I just put bananas and I'll kill Muckler. But with this card, you're not actually giving them resources to kill it until after they've killed it. So I think this is like a key differentiation between the two. You probably run both actually, like if you were planning on running like an aggro deck with like huge high value minions. But yeah, this card is actually really good for those reasons. Okay, moving on to Deathlord. It's a 3 mana, 2/8 taunt, but its death rattle is your opponent puts a minion from their deck into the battlefield. So if you're just running this card by itself, like it's really good against Suited, but like it's such a huge risk. If you play this against any control deck, and you give them like a Ragnaros or like a Sylvanas or something of this, then you're just gonna cry. Like you probably just want to concede at that exact moment, cause I mean, how can you deal with like Sylvanas or Ragnaros or something on like turn 3? It's like the trade-off is not really worth it, right? So you probably want to like silence this or something if you want to play it, because otherwise like this death rattle effect is potentially game losing for you. Moving on to Shade of Naxxramas. It's a 3 mana stealth. That's a 2/2, right? And it gains +1/+1 at the start of your turn, every turn. So this is basically like a mini Graw that like keeps growing and keeps growing. Or maybe like a questing adventurer was like stealth, right? And then it'll eventually become like really, really big, maybe even like game ending. But it's just so slow in like a standard deck. So this is one of those like gimmicky decks which you like play for fun against your friends, and you play like Shade of Naxxramas, and then you play like Paladin, and then you'd wait until like turn 7 or turn 8 or something, and you play like Blessing of Kings, and you play like Blessed Champion, and it doubles the attack, and then you'll one turn kill them. So like, obviously like the deck concept itself is like not competitively viable or even ladder viable, but like against your friends, like this card will be extremely fun, I think. The next card is Stoneskin Gargoyle, and at first I thought, well, why would I run this card? And then I thought to myself, wait a second, if I like buff this with Shattered Sun Cleric or like Blessing of Might or something, like if I buff this creature, then it'll return to like 4 HP every turn, right? So, or if you like increase its health, then like it's still gonna return to like the new full health. So this 3 mana, 1/4, at the start of your turn restore this minion to full health, is a card that wants to be buffed pretty much. And how viable it actually is will be dependent on how much silence is in the metagame. And because I think Shaman will be a thing, I don't feel like this deck will really have a place, but we'll find out. The next card is Baron Rivendare, and this is a 4 mana, 1/7 legendary that says your minions trigger their death rattles twice. So, if you think about this card, I feel like it's a little bit like Cult Master. It's like, ideally you want to have your death rattles on the board already, like ready to suicide into their creatures, right? And then you drop this card and then you suicide and you get like all of your positive benefits really quickly. But the problem I have with this card is that you actually have to be in like a winning position to actually benefit off it, because otherwise people are just going to crash into it and kill it immediately. And then a 1/7 for 4 mana is like, it's not very good. Like, it's like playing Mokushan Warden, right? AKA Brazil versus Germany. But you just wouldn't play it pretty much. So maybe this card will be good. Like if you play it with like a loot holder on the board and then crash it, draw 2 cards off it. So oh, and also this card is 1/7. So if you play like any type of stat booster, you play like Mark of the Wild on this, it's like a 3/9. That's actually like really really big. So we might see some play on this card. It's definitely decent, and you can definitely play it in a couple of decks. We'll find out. Okay. The next card is Wailing Soul, and this is a 4 mana 3/5. Battle Cry, silence your other minions, and I think the main point of this card is to like play this with like your Death Lords and like your Dancing Swords and maybe like your Frozen creatures, and you play this, and then all of a sudden like all of the negative effects associated with your huge beast sticks are gone, and that's actually like pretty good, I feel, because like it suddenly it suddenly allows you to play like a 2/8 on turn 3 without having to worry about giving them like Ragnaros or whatever. And a 3/5 is actually like not that bad for a 4-drop. Like it's kind of what you expect, because Chillwind Yeti is like a 4/5, and that's like the standard baseline for a 4 mana drop. And like, you know, people will play like Violet Teacher and stuff for 4 mana, so This card is just barely okay. Like you can play this card if you like want to combo it with like canceling your negative effects, pretty much. The next card is Fugan, and this is actually a set because there's Fugan and there's Stalag. And Fugan is a 4/7 5-mana creature, and its effect is when Stalag dies this game. If Stalag also dies this game, you can summon a card called Thaddeus, and Thaddeus is an 11/11 creature. So that's ridiculously huge. Okay. Um, and Stalag, which is over here, it says it's a 7/4 creature, and it says Death Rattle. If Fugan also died this game, summon Thaddeus. So it's basically the same thing, right? But Stalag is 7/4. Um, 4/7 is like way better than a 7/4 because 7 attack gets like destroyed by Big Game Hunter, and also 4 health is more vulnerable. Like it dies to stuff like Soulfire, and it dies to stuff like Swipe, for instance. Whereas 7 health, that's really hard to deal with, especially with 4 attack. So Fugan is good, like just by his stats, but Stalag is bad for his stats. But that said, like it's actually pretty cool because if they big game hunt your Stalag, and then like later you kill your Fugan, then they have to ask the Thaddeus, because Thaddeus is like 11/11, right? This card is like these two cards are ultimately based on how much silence and how much hex is in the game. Because if there's a low amount of silences and there's a low amount of hex in the game, then like very little can deal with like an 11/11 creature. So these cards are actually like pretty good in my opinion. Very metagame dependent, I feel. But like you will see some people try this out, and sometimes you will like succeed in the dream, and yeah, it'll be really nice for you. The next card that I'm going to talk about is Lothib, and it's a 5-mana, 5/5 creature. Has a battle cry of enemy spells cost 5 more next turn, and this is hands down, according to almost everyone I've talked to, the best card in all of Naxxramas. Like, this is going to be like one of those skill cards where you play this on that critical turn, where like you play all of your creatures on the board and then you slam down Lothar, and you're like, now you can't play Swipe, now you can't play like Poison Seeds, or like whatever game-changing cards you need, like Brawl or whatever. Like almost all the AoE in this game are spells, right? You slam this down, and all of a sudden they cannot clear your board. So you basically got, so like you can predict exactly what they can do next turn, and so you can set it up that like you've basically won the game, like on the turn you played Lothar. And this card effect, which I kind of stress enough, is one of the most powerful in the entire game. And because of its stats as well, like it can even be played on turn 5 if you really want to. But ideally you want to play this as a win condition. And this card is just going to be game changing, I feel, for like a lot of matchups. It's basically also like the old Sylvanas, like the 5-mana 5/5. I wouldn't even be surprised if this card got nerfed at some point, but we'll definitely see. The next card is Sludge Belcher, and it's a 5-mana taunt, and its death rattle is summon a 1/2 slime with taunt, and its stats are 3/5. I think this card is actually not very good. I think this card is a bit overpriced for what it actually does, because you get Sentient Shieldmaster for 4 mana, right? And effectively, you're paying 1 extra mana to get a 1/2 slime with taunt. That doesn't seem very good to me, and I don't see why you'd play this over Azure Drake, or I wouldn't play this over Azure Drake. I wouldn't play this over Lothar. I wouldn't play this over the new card which is coming out called Spectral Knight. I just feel like stat-wise it's quite weak, but the one advantage it does have is that it's probably better against like aggro decks using like tokens pretty much to like fight you, and then also you can buff the 1/2 slime with taunt. So in theory, this card could be okay, but at the moment I think it's pretty bad. Like, I feel like it's a bit overpriced. Maybe if it gave like a 2/2 Slimer Taunt, then I'd be like, man, this card's really good. Because then it deals with stuff like Leroy as well. But as I see it right now, this card is pretty average. The next card is Spectral Knight. I think this is the second best card in the entire set. Some people claim it's a bit overrated, but I think it's like really, really good. It's a 5 mana 4/6 that can't be targeted by spells or hero powers. And that basically means that decks like Priest, decks like Druid have no answer to it because they need to use their spells to kill it, right? Oh, and especially Miracle Rogue, because Miracle Rogue is basically all spell dependent. So like in conjunction with like Loatheb, you play this in Spectral Knight, and then Miracle Rogue is just sitting there and like, man, I can't do anything. I can't kill this thing. Like, can't play my spells. And then they'll just slowly die into like this 4/6 creature, because like Miracle Rogue's creatures are traditionally a lot weaker than like a 4/6, right? And then you play like Defender of Argus, and like they can pretty much never deal with it. So this card in conjunction with Loatheb, like these two cards are gonna kill Miracle Rogue in my opinion. And 4/6, it also like allows you to deal with Azure Drake, which previously like no other cards would allow you to do like effectively, because like you had Druid, right, and they had Druid with the Claw, and that was like a really good card. But then all the other decks, like apart from Warlock with Doomguard, had no access to like 5 drops apart from Azure Drake. But now you have this, and this kills Azure Drake and lives. So this card's extremely good. I expected to see a lot of play. And the next card is Naxxramas. It's a 6 mana 2/8, and it says destroy any minion damaged by this minion. And it's a beast. It's hard to say. It's hard to like. It's hard to judge this card. Any creature with this much HP is like. It's like a really big fan of getting buffed by like. Any stat booster like Shattered Sun Cleric or Defender of Argus or whatever. It's like a huge version of what was it? The Cobra, like the 2/3 Cobra for 3 mana that also like does the same thing. The issue is that like if people ever run Stampeding Coda and then you play this and then they drop Stampeding Coda and kill it, then like you just want to concede right there, right? But considering how big this is, I wouldn't be surprised to see it in like in Priest or something where you just like buff it a lot and then it kills everything and then heal it back up afterwards. So Naxxramas is definitely a card which I can see being played, but once again it gets destroyed by like Shaman pretty much, because Shaman will just hex it, and then if you like stat boost it and then you get a hexed, you're just gonna be wasting all of your investment. So I don't know how to feel about Naxxramas. Like at the moment it doesn't seem that good to me, but it's definitely not a bad card. Definitely might see play in the future as well. And the final card is Kel'Thuzad, and this will probably be the last card you actually obtain from Curse of Naxxramus. And for good reason, like, it's 8 mana, 6/8 creature that says at the end of each turn, summon all friendly minions that died this turn. And if you look at the stats themselves, like 6/8, 6/8 is actually godly. Like, it doesn't get killed by Big Game Hunter, and 8 health, like, basically means it doesn't die to anything in battle. And like 6 attack usually kills everything anyway, right? But like the thing with Kel'Thuzad is you can do some sick things with him. Like, here's a win condition. If he stays on the board for like any amount of time while you have like a board already, this card will win you the game. Cause you can do some sick things. Like, you can play Faceless Manipulator on Kel'Thuzad, and then like if he fails to kill both of your Kel'Thuzads at the same turn, then you'll just revive the other Kel'Thuzad. So like, let's say you do something like you go like Kel'Thuzad double Faceless Manipulator on your Kel'Thuzads, and like they're pretty much screwed. Like, they have, I don't know how it works. Maybe it'll also like if they kill one Kel'Thuzad, you might even like respawn like 2 more Kel'Thuzads. So this is a really cool card, which I'm quite excited about, because at first I didn't think too much about its effect, but then I thought to myself, my God, this is like a huge win condition, and its stats are just so good. Um, yeah, this card is. I mean, I don't know like if it'll actually be good, but I think a lot of people will try to make this card into a legitimate deck, and like I wouldn't blame them because this card is just really strong. Like this could be like a legendary for like any class pretty much, and it would be considered pretty good. And I think that's about it for all the cards in Naxxramas. So if you stuck with me for the entire review, um, well, thank you. It's been quite a long rant. I think at the end of everything though, like we'll be seeing like a lot of. I think we'll be seeing a lot of aggro decks, like mid-range aggro decks, and I also think that Miracle Rogue will no longer be a deck. So, or at least like Miracle Rogue in its current state will definitely not be a deck anymore, because you cannot justify playing Miracle Rogue against Spectral Knight and Lothar. Yeah, and we'll also be seeing a lot of Priest, which I'm kind of looking forward to, because my Priest isn't level 60 yet, and I actually really enjoy playing Priest. So that wraps it up for my entire review. Thanks for watching, and if you want to follow me, I'm on Twitter as well, I'm on Facebook, and I have like a text version of this review as well. And support my Team Envy, sponsored by Plantronics and a few other people. Can't put my finger on it. Okay, anyways, thank you for watching, and bye.